concerns about Iran and what role those concerns played in formulating this review. The President very briefly said the other day he was concerned Iran was still on a track for nuclear capability. Your current assessment of the time frame, what that really means, what message you're sending to Iran with all of this?
Well, I think that I actually think that the NPR has a very strong message for both Iran and North Korea. Because whether it's in declaratory policy or in other elements of the NPR, we essentially carve out states like Iran and North Korea that are not in compliance with NPT, and basically all options are on the table when it comes to countries in that category, along with non-state actors who might acquire nuclear weapons. So if there is a message for Iran and North Korea here, it is that if you're going to play by the rules, if you're going to join the international community, then we will undertake certain obligations to you. And that's covered in the NPR. But if you're not going to play by the rules, if you're going to be a proliferator, then all options are on the table in terms of how we deal with you.
Can I ask you to follow up on that? Page 33 of the report talks about one of the goals of an enhanced regional architecture is to ensure that any attempts to attack U.S. forces or partners or allies will be blunted and their aims denied with an enhanced set of capabilities. Translate to the Middle East, does that mean if Iran attacks Israel or the Gulf states with either conventional or nuclear weapons, the U.S. would attack to blunt their aims?
I'm not going to go down a hypothetical road with you on that. Last question. Yeah.
Yeah. On the alert status, why does that remain unchanged if so many other things are changing under the NPR? And also, could you tell us a little bit more about how the presidential decision-making process also will be changed under the NPR?
Well, I think there are provisions, and the experts can get into it with you, but there are some changes that we've made in command and control that we think tighten things up and also give the president more time for decision. I'm sorry, what was the first part of your question?
On the military alert.
On the alert status. Frankly, we feel like the situation is a satisfactory one at the current time. We have no armed bombers sitting at the end of runways any longer. We have, as you'll read in the NPR, our ICBMs are all targeted right now on the oceans, so that if, God forbid, and for the first time in 60 years, there were an accidental launch or a problem, it would put a missile right into the middle of the ocean rather than targeted on any country. So I think we've taken a number of steps to ensure, A, that the president has additional time for decision, but B, that the forces on alert are not subject to some kind of disaster. Thank you all very much.
I agree.
As our principals indicated and as advertised to you, we have a number of policy and subject matter experts that are here to address some of your questions in greater detail. The format for this would be that we start off with a brief presentation by Jim Miller, who is the Principal Deputy Undersecretary for Policy here in the Defense Department, and he will share that briefing with General Cartwright, the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and then we'll invite their colleagues to address any questions that you might have from the other departments. So with that, Jim, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks. Go ahead. Could we pull up the charts, please? We'll go through these charts relatively quickly. I know people want to get to the questions and hear the answers. This, I'll go ahead and start as it's coming up. This is the third comprehensive review of nuclear posture conducted by an administration. And as Secretary Clinton noted, this is the first one to have entirely unclassified product. Previous reviews in 1994 and 2001. You've heard about the collaboration that went on between the departments, in addition to State and Energy, extensive involvement of the intelligence community and of all the other members of the National Security Council as well. This review did build on the Quadrennial Defense Review and the Ballistic Missile Defense Review. When General Cartwright talks about regional security architectures and our approach to regional deterrence, you'll see the closest linkage to both of those. And close consultation throughout with Congress and allies, something over 80 meetings that took place from beginning to end of the Nuclear Posture Review. Next chart, please. Started with an assessment of the strategic security environment and noted that it was really substantially changed from the Cold War and from prior years. From the outset, this review focused extensively on the challenges of nuclear proliferation and the possibility of nuclear terrorism. And we do see transnational terrorist groups continuing to try to seek weapons of mass destruction, including trying to seek nuclear weapons or nuclear materials. And as was referred to before with respect to Iran and North Korea, in particular, we see states pursuing nuclear weapons in defiance of the international community. Understood also the requirement to continue to reinforce and enhance regional security architectures to strengthen deterrence of regional aggression. This includes not just at the nuclear umbrella that the NPR focused on principally, but also considering how to strengthen our missile defenses, conventional capabilities, and combating weapons of mass destruction capabilities as well. The purpose is both to effectively deter and to reassure our allies of our commitment. And third, understanding that with the U.S. and Russia continuing to have 90% plus of the nuclear weapons in the world, that reinforcing strategic stability with Russia was essential, and that with China, we also need to begin discussions on strategic stability and think about the future. New START is a key next step in this effort, and General Cartwright will talk about more. Next chart, please. I'll just flash this chart briefly. It goes through the list of 5 different areas of the NPR, the policy framework that we used, and we'll go and then say a few words about each of them very quickly. Next chart, please. The first priority and the first topic to address today is preventing nuclear terrorism and nuclear proliferation. This NPR lays out additional steps that we'll take to lead international efforts to bolster the regime, to strengthen IAEA safeguards, and as we look forward to enforcing compliance. The NPT review conference in May is a critical next step in this process. As we conducted the review, we also looked to what kind of budgetary steps were appropriate and necessary, and we've just shown one of the examples on the chart, and that is an increase in non-proliferation programs from DOE. Other agencies have also increased their funding in this area as well. The President had committed to a global lockdown, secure all vulnerable nuclear materials within 4 years, and this review confirmed that and also looked at how to implement that. We will see further progress on that at the Nuclear Security Summit next week. Part of the review, and this is an area where it overlapped with the Quadrennial Defense Review, part of the review looked at what kinds of investments are needed to have better capabilities to detect and, if necessary, to interdict smuggled nuclear materials. And we have increased investments in those areas as well, and as we reported during the rollout of the QDR, we'll also be standing up a standing joint task force for WMD elimination in the Department of Defense. Reaffirming U.S. commitment to fulfill NPT obligations, including the obligation for disarmament, was a fundamental principle, and this review started with and looked at how to implement the President's goal of a world free of nuclear weapons in the long term. Some of the steps that we intend to take are listed there, including the treaty negotiations, but also a comprehensive program on verification, including contributions from Department of Energy, Department of State, and DOD as well. And the Secretary spoke about renewing the U.S. commitment to hold accountable, as you see in the chart there. Next chart, please. And this is one where I want to take the bulk of my time before I turn over to General Cartwright, and that's to talk about U.S. declaratory policy. You can think about 2 different categories of states. The first is non-nuclear weapon states that are compliant with their non-proliferation obligations. This comprises the vast majority of countries in the world. And what we look to do in the declaratory policy here is to strengthen the U.S. negative security assurance that's associated with the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and it is as stated. I won't repeat it, but we have it quoted if you have a look at it, and then remind you that these states, if any of these states that are compliant with the NPT use chemical or biological weapons, we state very clearly that they face the prospect of a devastating conventional military response if they use CBW against the United States or our partners or allies. And as the Secretary of Defense noted, we explicitly reserve the right to adjust this assurance in the future if the biological weapons threat grows significantly and if our capability to cope with it doesn't grow correspondingly. This combination of policies is intended to both give incentives to states to join and adhere to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, but also to take steps to reduce the threat and not increase the threat associated with biological weapons. For nuclear weapon states and states that are not compliant with their non-proliferation obligations, a different rule set. We still say that the U.S. would not use nuclear weapons, would use nuclear weapons only in extreme circumstances to defend the vital interests of the United States or allies.